We need to finish what we started. And President Trump is the instrument, a providential instrument to finish that, to finish this job.
What's up, y'all? Maniacal drunk sloppy Steve Bannon is straight up exposing his plan and desire to steal another term for Trump. Let's watch these clips and then let's watch other people of the administration, including Trump himself, who are straight up telling on themselves. This type of stuff is important to record and talk about at the time, so then when parts of this plan starts to work itself out, we're not completely shocked and taken off guard, even though most people are gonna act like they didn't see this coming. And to be fair, it may not be acting, as the mainstream media isn't gonna cover it until halfway through Trump's third term. Or your social media echo chamber will convince you that maybe it's a good thing. Either way, it's important that we talk about it before anything actually happens.
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. And the way we finish it through Trump. Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you can tell this of how he's pulled this off. We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me in the last few minutes. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through, Zanny, and define all those terms.
Okay? But even if you find a way to undermine you will be undermining the spirit of that amendment, even if you find some way around it. And to those
Can the American people, if the American people, with the mechanisms we have, put Trump back in office, are the American people tearing up the Constitution? Would that be tearing up?
Well,
would the American people be going against the spirit of the Constitution, ma'am?
I think yes, actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all. Trump
That's what it sounds like.
It's not. Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make on the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump. President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
But Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's
no.
I think that's why it seems to me some kind of tension
First off, the only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people, okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started. And President Trump is the instrument, a providential instrument to finish this job.
So there, Bannon basically said they're gonna try at one point to redefine the 22nd Amendment. What is the 22nd Amendment? It says, quote, "No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once." So even if you were president twice, not consecutively, like Trump is, you can't go a third time. They might try to argue with a conservative majority Supreme Court that just because it's not 2 in a row, he should be allowed to run for 2 in a row. That shouldn't even be brought up. Mehdi Hasan responded to that clip saying, "Yup, not joking. Huge crisis coming our way. Bigger than the current ones." Mehdi's been right about a lot of things. The billionaire control of the government, all of the overly aggressive immigration policies, more tax cuts for the rich, a bunch of stuff. Is this just another thing he's right about? Or is Mehdi just being hyperbolic? Let me know in the comment section. This plan might sound a little far-fetched, but for what it seems like they're planning for the midterms, it might not be. But there are other plans. This wasn't the only plan. But before we get into their plans for the midterms, there's also talks about Trump running as somebody else's vice president. But Even Trump says that might be too cute of a plan and it might not work. Let's take a listen.
One theory on how you might try to serve a third term is that you could run as the vice president.
Yeah, I'd be allowed to do that.
Is it the White House's or the White House counsel's or your legal position, I guess?
You'd be allowed to do that, but I wouldn't do that. I think it's too cute. Yeah, I would rule that out because it's too cute. I think the people wouldn't like that. It's too cute. It's not, it wouldn't be right.
Sure, golf related.
Notice the emphasis on, I would be allowed to do that. I would be allowed to do that. That means someone, probably many people around him, are telling him, hey, this is an option. We could do this. And his response is not, no, because there's no third term. It's, that's too cute. We don't want to beat around the bush. If we're going to go for a third term, we have to do it forcefully. He prefers to be forward with it, which I respect because he's not trying to sneak in through the back door. He's trying to stay in the White House, which may be what his quote-unquote ballroom actually is. A bunker, more than just a place to wine and dine billionaires, because you can do that anywhere. And that's the theory of architects, including a man named Andrew Kerr, who ran the numbers and isn't convinced that the construction that they're doing and the price tag of it all is not just for a ballroom. Here's the Dre dossier to break it all down.
Yeah, so Trump is not building a ballroom. And I feel like I've known this in my soul, but now I feel like I have irrefutable proof, thanks to Andrew Kerr, an architect who posted on Facebook a few days ago and blew this case wide open. And he, by the way, has over 20 years of experience working on federal projects, and he walked through in his Facebook post step by step why this does not make any sense, this ballroom. I mean, for one, he just kind of did the math. $300 million at 90,000 square feet would be about $3,333 per square foot. He said that even luxury federal construction doesn't usually approach $1,000 per square foot. He also mentioned the geometry of these renderings being nearly impossible because the renderings are showing a building that would need a 380 by 235 foot footprint, but the interior views show maybe 200 by 100 feet, and that's only 20,000 square feet, so that can't exist in the same building. Not to mention that the construction drawings, he said, look like they were thrown together in about a week, and I think that that's pretty generous considering I think that they were probably thrown together by Grok within, I don't know, a couple of minutes, probably by Big Balls or whoever's still wandering around the White House from Doge. So the million-dollar question then becomes, well then what is he building? And the answer, I think, is that he's building an underground data center. Hear me out. Think about where they're building, because it's not random, it's the East Wing, and that's where the PEOC bunker is. And just think about the significance of that, because that is where the tunnel systems are that connect the White House to the Treasury to the other federal buildings. It's where all of the secure communications infrastructure lives. I mean, that's prime real estate, just underground. Honestly, this kind of reminds me of the Oracle data centers that Larry Ellison built underground in Jerusalem. You know, the ones that were 9 stories deep, 160 feet below the ground, 460,000 square feet. And guess how much those cost? $319 million per bunker. Yeah, and the White House is already at $300 million for this ballroom, and it's only climbing. Fiscally, it feels like a more apt comparison, I feel like. Even outside of the architecture anomalies, the fact that this is privately funded should have been our first red flag. I mean, this is Donald Trump we're talking about, baby. I mean, the man who has absolutely no problem spending taxpayer money on stuff that just benefits him. This is the same guy who spent over $3.9 billion in taxpayer money just to make over Air Force One. Didn't he also make Secret Service pay to stay at Mar-a-Lago? Like he charged the room bill to them? Just ridiculous. So when he suddenly won't spend government money on this means this isn't actually serving him. This means that this is serving someone else specifically. Look at the donor list. You've got defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and Booz Allen Hamilton, and you've got tech giants like Amazon, Apple, Google, Meta, Microsoft, Palantir. You've got crypto companies like Coinbase, Ripple, and Tether, and then telecoms like T-Mobile and Comcast. These aren't people who are funding a party space. These are companies who have very specific interests in government infrastructure, government data, and government operations. Don't get it twisted. They are funding infrastructure that very directly serves them. Also, think about Larry Ellison's vision, the one that he spoke about in the keynote the other day that I made a video on.
What it means for what government should do in terms of its digital infrastructure, digital ID, data centers, and so on.
How do you take advantage of these incredible AI models? And the first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. And in the Middle East, in the UAE, for example, they're incredibly rich in data. They have a lot of population data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. So that's the big step. That's kind of the missing link. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model, and then ask whatever question you like.
The part where he said that he wants to automate the government. I mean, a lot of these tech bros have been talking about automating the government. And if you want to automate federal operations or create a single digital platform for the government, then that means you need a supremely secure physical home for that system. And by placing it directly under the White House, you eliminate latency problems and you ensure that the President of the United States has direct physical control over the system's core. Because remember, it's about centralizing control and securing the brain of the government. I know it sounds very dystopian, and in many ways it's because it is. But these are very real things that are happening around the world. And the companies that are funding this, well, they're buying access. They want their systems integrated to how the government operates. And that's what $300 million will get you, I guess.
So that theory is pretty strong and kind of plausible. But now, last but not least, we have Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth basically admitting and confirming a memo that was put out that said that the National Guard will be active and deployed throughout all 50 states by April of 2026. Just in time for people to say something about it, do a few protests, and then move on right as the midterms come along.
Secretary Hegseth, sir, a memo circulating on social media details the establishment of a National Guard response force that's going to be trained in crowd control and civil unrest and deployed in all 50 states by April of 2026. Can you verify the authenticity of that memo, and do you have any more information on the operations?
I'm not going to answer particulars on something that may be in the planning process, but we definitely do have multiple layers of National Guard response forces, whether it's in each state, whether it's regionally, whether it's Title 10 active duty, whether it's Washington, D.C. We've got a lot of different ways that constitutionally and legally we can employ Title 10 and Title 32 forces, and we will do so when necessary.
Let's be clear, Trump and everybody around him all have their own plans of getting him a third term. And they're gonna try every one of those plans at the same time. So some are gonna get shot down, but just like a girl getting pregnant, all you need is one to get through. You don't need all the seeds hitting the egg at the same time. You only gotta slip one past the goalie. And the fact that they're trying to come up with so many different angles to approach this is crazy. They're not using the same will and brain power and energy to try to help people. They're using it to keep their puppet in power while the richest people in the world fully, and nakedly so, control the world. Outright. And publicly. All I can say is, no matter how much mutual aid you're a part of or contributing to, now is the time to ramp that up. Love your neighbor. Peace.